August 19th, 1972, 3:17 a.m. Frank Lucas pushed open the door of an all-night bodega on Amsterdam and 147th. The bell over the door jingled once. The clerk looked up, saw Frank, and immediately found something very important to do under the counter. Frank walked past the dusty candy rack, past the humming refrigerators, to the back corner where a metal payphone hung on the wall like a forgotten witness. He took 3 quarters from his pocket, fed them into the slot, dialed 11 numbers from memory. The line rang 4 times. On the 5th ring, a sleepy, irritated voice answered in Italian-accented English. "Who is this?" Frank put the receiver closer to his mouth. "I know about the Lennox deal," he said. 6 words. Then he hung up. 75 cents. 6 words. 3 minutes in a bodega. 48 hours later, the Italians were gone from Harlem. To understand why that one call worked, you have to understand what the Italians thought they'd already done. 3 hours earlier, they thought they'd beaten Frank Lucas. August 19th, 1972, 3:52 a.m., Lenox Avenue. 2 vans, 20 men, all Genovese. They rolled up quiet in front of a brick warehouse Frank used as a counting house. No sign, no guards outside, just a heavy metal door with 1 rusted padlock. Too easy. "Cut it," the crew chief said. Sparks flew. The lock dropped. The door rolled up on groaning tracks. Inside, on wooden pallets, were duffel bags, dark green, unmarked, stacked waist-high. One of the soldiers unzipped the nearest bag. Bundles of cash spilled into view. "Merda," he whispered. "Jackpot. $375,000. Street money. Frank's money." They loaded fast. 12 minutes. No alarms. No sirens. No backup. Not one of them asked the only question that mattered. Why would a man like Frank Lucas leave that much money that unprotected? They just grabbed and went. By 4:10 a.m., the vans were headed north. By 4:30, the money was locked in a Genovese safe house in the Bronx. By 5, a captain named Carlo Fontana was pouring himself a drink in Little Italy. He thought he'd just pulled off the perfect hit on Frank Lucas. He was wrong. 3 weeks earlier, at a corner table in the Red Rooster on 138th, Frank had already started this war. He didn't start it with a gun. He started it with a napkin. The bartender, Luis, slid it onto Frank's table with the bill. White paper, blue ink, 1 license plate, 1 address, 1 time. "Car been outside your spot 3 nights, same hour," Luis muttered without looking up. "White guys, don't drink, don't tip." Frank glanced at the napkin, folded it once, lit it with his lighter, watched the numbers turn to ash. "Appreciate it," he said. 2 hours later, Illinois Gordon, Frank's quiet shadow, was following that same car 4 blocks behind, lights off. By morning, Illinois had names. "Genovese," he said in Frank's office above the club. 3 captains, meeting on Mulberry every Tuesday. They're talking about Harlem. They call it the Lennox deal. "Which Lennox?" Frank asked. Illinois slid a photograph across the desk. It showed Frank's own warehouse, the one they'd later empty. "Their plan," Illinois said, "is to hit it. Take the cash. Show the neighborhood you're not untouchable." Frank looked at the photo for a long time. Most men in his position would have doubled the guards, moved the money, filled the warehouse with shooters, and waited. Frank Lucas leaned back in his chair instead. "Don't touch it," he said. Illinois frowned. "Boss, they're coming for—" "I heard you," Frank said. "Don't touch it. No extra guards, no changes. Let them look at it and think I'm sleeping." He tapped the edge of the photo. "They think the money is the move," Frank said. "It's not. They're the move." For the next 3 weeks, Frank didn't touch the warehouse. He touched their lives. He watched Carlo the banker Fontana come and go from his construction office in Queens. Legit contracts, city inspectors, clean checks. He watched Dominic the priest Calabrese pick up his daughter from her private school in Connecticut. 17. Smiling. No idea who her father really was. He watched Vincent Vinnie Pipes Puglisi walk into a meatpacking plant in New Jersey at midnight and leave 2 hours later alone, hands clean, a river nearby. Frank never stepped close. He let Illinois and 2 others do the walking. They took pictures, wrote down times, collected little details. What Carlo parked out front, which dorm Dominic's daughter lived in, which alley Vinny used as a shortcut. Frank didn't need to know where they slept. He needed to know what they couldn't afford to lose, When the vans rolled into the Lenox warehouse, Frank was sitting in his office, not sleeping. He had a clock on the wall, a map of Harlem on the table, and 3 plain white envelopes in front of him. At 3:50 a.m., he looked at the clock. "They're cutting the lock," he said calmly. Illinois, sitting across from him, checked his own watch. At 4:02 a.m., "They're zipping bags," Frank said. Illinois didn't ask how he knew. By then, he understood something. Frank Lucas didn't need to be in the room to control it. At 4:15 a.m., Frank nodded once. "It's their money now," he said. "No," Illinois corrected instinctively. "It's your—" Frank shook his head. "Not anymore," he said. "They just bought something with it." Illinois frowned. "What?" "Fear," Frank said. "They paid $375,000 to be afraid." The phone call at 3:17 a.m. was the first payment coming due. On the other end, in Little Italy, Carlo hung up slowly. He stared at the phone in his hand like it had bitten him. His wife rolled over in bed. "What's wrong?" "Wrong number," he lied, but his heart was pounding. Frank Lucas knew, which meant everything about the Lenox deal. The vans, the time, the warehouse, had been visible the whole time, which meant the only question now was, what else did Frank see? By 9 a.m., Carlo had called an emergency meeting at the Mulberry Street Club. Dominic and Vinny came in angry and half awake, suits thrown on, ties crooked, cigarettes already lit. Carlo dropped into his chair. "Lucas called me at 3 in the morning, he said. No small talk. He said, "I know about the Lenox deal." Then he hung up. Dominic snorted. "So he knows." "So what? We already took his money." Vinny shrugged. If he was going to do something, he'd have done it at the warehouse. "You want coffee, or—" A knock at the door cut him off. One of the younger guys poked his head in. "Some kid's here," he said. "Says somebody paid him $50 to bring this." The kid came in holding 3 white envelopes. "No name, no return address," he mumbled. "Guy in a gray suit gave them to me outside. Said, make sure they open the right ones." He handed 1 envelope to each captain. The kid waited like he'd been told not to leave until they were open. Carlo tore his along the top. Inside was a single photograph. His construction company. Daylight. City car parked out front. Inspector's badge visible on the lapel. On the back, in neat handwriting, "The man with the clipboard is my cousin. 1 call, he finds 10 violations. 2 calls, the newspapers do." Carlo's mouth went dry. Dominic opened his. His daughter, walking out of her dorm, books in her arms. 2 friends laughing beside her. On the back, "She doesn't know who paid for that campus. She doesn't have to. Unless I decide she does." Dominic's cigarette almost slipped from his fingers. Vinny slid his photo out more slowly. It was a grainy shot of the back of the meatpacking plant. A dumpster, a concrete ramp, a shape being dragged in a tarp. On the back, "Newark police keep files for years. So do reporters. Noise is bad for business. Yours. And theirs." The kid shifted nervously. "I'm supposed to say something," he added. "The guy told me." They all looked up. "What?" Carlo demanded. The kid swallowed. "He said to tell you, the money was the cheapest thing in that warehouse." Then he left. Nobody stopped him. Silence swallowed the room. Carlo was the first to break. "He knew everything," Carlo said. "Our names, the hit, the warehouse, our lives." Dominic's jaw clenched. "He won't touch family." Carlo turned on him. "He doesn't have to," Carlo snapped. "He just has to tell them who you are. You want your little girl reading your name in the paper next to the word mafia?" Dominic said nothing. Vinny lit another cigarette with hands that weren't steady anymore. "We hit his place once," Vinny said. "Now he can hit us anywhere." "Not can," Carlo said. "Will." He lifted the photograph again. "This is not a man asking for money back," Carlo continued. "If he wanted that, he'd have said it. This is a man saying, I see you. I see everything. I can hurt what you care about without ever pulling a trigger." By noon, the 3 captains were still arguing. "We go back at him," Dominic said. "Hit something else. Show him we're not scared." "He already knows we're scared," Carlo shot back. That was the point of these. Vinny stayed quiet. He was staring at his photo like it might move. Then the door opened again. A man they didn't recognize stepped in. Gray suit, no tie, calm face. "Wrong room," Dominic barked. "Private meeting." The man closed the door behind him. "Mr. Fontana," he said, looking at Carlo. "Mr. Calabresi, Mr. Puglisi, my boss sends his regards." Carlo's hand went to his waistband, but the man in gray held up one hand. "If you were going to shoot me," he said, "you'd have done it already. But then your little problem upstairs," he nodded toward the office window and the city beyond, "gets louder." He reached into his pocket. For a second, all three captains tensed. Not a gun. Another envelope. He slid it onto the table. Just one this time. For whoever still thinks this is a negotiation. No one moved. Carlo finally reached out and opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It wasn't a photo. It was a copy of a bank transfer from a shell company in New Jersey to a private school in Connecticut. On the memo line, "Tuition Calabrese, Gianna." Dominic went white. How the hell did he? "The question isn't how," the man in gray said. "The question is how loud he wants to make it. This is the quiet version." He leaned on the table with both hands. "You hit one warehouse," he said. "That's what you took. Congratulations. You stole $375,000 from a man who makes that in a week. In return, he now owns leverage on all three of you." He looked at each in turn. "Mr. Fontana, your contracts go away if one inspector gets brave. Mr. Calabrese, your daughter's life explodes if one reporter gets curious. Mr. Puglisi, your name becomes a headline if one detective gets tired." He straightened up. "My boss doesn't want his money back," he said. "He wants his neighborhood back." Vinny finally spoke. "What happens?" he asked. "If we say no?" The man in gray smiled a little. "You won't," he said. "How do you know?" Dominic snapped. "Because I've already seen what you protect when nobody's watching," he said. "He has too." He nodded at the photos on the table. "You've got 48 hours, he said. "Every man, every bag, every route north of 110th gets pulled. After that, he starts making calls. Not to shooters, to people in suits." He walked to the door. "Harlem's not your war," he added. "It's his home. You don't win on somebody else's home court." Then he left. No one followed. The Italians started pulling out that afternoon. Bagmen didn't show up to collections. Enforcers disappeared from doorways. Store owners who'd been paying 2 envelopes a week suddenly had one. By midnight, people on 145th were already whispering, "Did you hear? Italians are gone." By the next day, the last Genovese soldier north of 110th carried his suitcase onto a train like a traveling salesman who'd chosen the wrong town. Frank never fired a shot. He never raised his voice. He just turned on a light and let 3 captains look at their own shadows. 3 months later, a reporter from the Amsterdam News cornered Frank outside a club. "Is it true," she asked, "that the Italians left Harlem because of you?" Frank took a long drag on his cigarette. "They left because they did the math," he said. "What math?" she asked. "Simple," Frank replied. "They figured out what was more expensive, staying and losing everything they couldn't replace, or leaving and only losing what they'd already stolen." "And what did you do?" She pushed. He flicked ash onto the sidewalk. "I made a phone call," he said. "From a payphone. Cost me 75 cents. She laughed, thinking he was joking. He wasn't. On the street, the story got sharper. They said Frank Lucas let the Italians rob him once. They said he knew every step, every car, every man. They said he had photographs that never saw daylight. They said the Genovese captains sat in their own club holding pictures of their lives while a man in a gray suit told them Harlem wasn't theirs anymore. One version of the story added a detail nobody could prove. It said Frank kept 3 quarters taped inside his desk drawer after that. Not for luck. As a reminder, you don't need an army when you know exactly where to press. Because that night, Frank Lucas proved something most gangsters never understand. Guns make noise. Information makes decisions, and one quiet phone call at 3:17 a.m. can move more men in 48 hours than 1,000 bullets ever will.
Corner booth, red sauce stain, smoke making halos around the old man's chain. Cash in a sugar jar, gun by the bathroom door. He kisses his pinky ring, says, "Kid, you ain't poor, you're invited." Come Concrete suits weigh you down if you talk too loud. Family rules, you're in deep when you take that vow. Shake on forever in a backroom crowd. Concrete suits, they fit you now. Cologne and gasoline, black caddy, double park. Newsstand sells the papers, they print the bodies after dark. Brown envelope, church steps at 8. Priest keeps his eyes closed, says, son, it ain't my place, I stay silent. Concrete suits weigh you down if you talk too loud. Family rules, you're in deep when you take that vow. Shake on forever in a backroom crowd. Concrete suits, it fits you now. Sunday dinner, silver plates, Ma says grace while the shadows wait. Tomato on your shirt, blood on your sleeve. You call it business, you call it belief.